Hey there, it's Jordan. I am in Orlando, Florida, where we've been the last few days, covering the economic Hunger Games, the affordable housing crisis, as well as the culture war on steroids going on in Florida. I spoke with students yesterday, LGBTQ students, spoke with Representative Carlos Smith, who's the first Latino LGBTQ representative here in Florida. Also spoke with some candidates like Maxwell Frost. I'm with State Rep Anna Eskamani, and you are definitely on the progressive side, trying to fight this culture war thing in a Democratic Party, which I'm sure we'll talk about, is moving to the center nationally and seems to be economically lost in the wilderness. But I wanted to start. Governor DeSantis, we know about the Don't Say Gay bill, which we'll talk about. But yesterday, during an affordable housing crisis, climate crisis, you name your crisis economically in Florida, he signed a proclamation to basically name the runner-up in a swim meet the winner, because he has a problem with the transgender swimmer winning. I wanted to get your thoughts because, I mean, of all the issues going on in Florida, this is what the governor is taking time, which is obviously playing to a national base.
100%. It's absolutely disgusting, and it's his MO to distract and deflect. That's his entire premise of governorship. And you're right, it's not about the people of Florida. It's trying to appeal to a national Republican base. And it is so hurtful to trans lives. And also it speaks to just how this has become the Republican strategy. It's all about messaging for them. It's not really about substance. They're not trying to solve problems or just want to create more and then point the finger at those that they think are at fault. It's like a boogeyman scenario, right? Like you create a fake enemy, you slay that enemy, now you're the winner, even though it never was a problem to begin with. So that has been the MO of the entire DeSantis administration. The last almost 4 years now of him being in office has been a constant navigation of culture wars and of him also hurting marginalized communities along the way.
And can you kind of talk about, I mean, I've talked to people, their rent's going up 30%, 40%, 50%. It's kind of an emergency if you add on top of it, people are still digging out of the economic hole from COVID. In Florida, frankly, some people are still digging out of the hole from the financial crash a decade ago. Kind of tell people what's going on here, because there's an affordable housing crisis everywhere, but in Florida it is really bad.
No, really well said. And remember, Florida is a service economy, right? Like, we are such a service-driven economy, especially here in Central Florida. Walt Disney World employs 77,000 people in the surrounding county area. And so so many of our folks are not really making that much money to begin with. They're not being able to build wealth so they can actually put a down payment on a home and get out of a rent situation into home ownership. And because of the delays in folks being able to make that transition, you also have less starter homes being available because they're getting sold to investors. And folks with cash are showing up from other states and other parts of the world buying out property that Floridians could benefit from. So you're squeezing the working class even more. And this has been a crisis for a long time. It's not the first time we've had efforts to address the affordable housing crisis. For decades, families have lived in hotels and motels along 192, one of our main highways here in Central Florida. And of course, others are completely unhoused without any type of security. And we actually just had a homeless mom who's staying at a women's shelter come to our office 2 days ago, seeking support, walked right to our front door. I mean, the need is here, but the leadership is not. And so we're having to figure out our own solutions to these problems, tapping into federal resources, and thank God for federal rental assistance, for federal housing assistance. The state of Florida is slow to get out the money, but if we didn't have that resource, honestly, there would be an even worse situation today. And then we're also trying to look towards the nonprofit community. I have fundraised myself to help families in need, but that is the indication of a broken system, right? We shouldn't have to do that. Government should be able to fix this problem and handle this crisis. But when you have leaders like DeSantis, they just totally ignore it because it doesn't sound good, doesn't look good, doesn't appeal to their base. They just pretend like it doesn't exist.
Yeah. Let me ask you, I mean, straight up, nationally, Democratic Party to me is a mess with a side of corruption. They're taking a lot of the same money from Republicans.
Correct.
I've spoken with people about the Florida Democratic Party. I know, you're a Democrat, but I've heard you are actually, and a small group, are actually fighting for working class issues and trying to push the party here to the left, to working class issues. But a lot of these Democrats here are taking cash from real estate developers, Disney, big corporations. I mean, people look at that and say, all right, DeSantis is bad, but you're not giving me anything to vote for.
Yeah.
Can you talk about the Democratic Party here? Because they're, to me, not just in Orlando, but St. Pete, Tampa, Miami, they're taking a lot of the same money and then making excuses why we can't do rent control and things like that.
Yeah, it's a really, really good point. Sometimes I feel like the culture wars also give Democrats cover. Because imagine if there were no culture wars and you were just voting on economic issues or regulatory issues, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference, right? I look at issues like Big Sugar, where only 7 of us voted against a liability shield for the sugar industry to continue burning sugarcane, which is negatively impacting Black and brown communities and their air quality. You look at Florida Power and Light, one of the country's largest utilities with the parent company NextEra, 11 million customers in Florida. And they just pursued a attack on rooftop solar.
Right.
And Democrats voted for this bill because they take money from NextEra and FPL. And so it's incredibly frustrating because, part of my mission in doing this work is to help folks realize that when you vote Democrat, your life will improve. Like, we'll focus on solving these problems. But then I look at my peers and I'm like, oh, well, I can't always say that, right? Like, I'll work to solve your problems, but I have to challenge my own party because they are time and time again siding with the biggest of corporations and completely ignoring our working class heroes. And so it is a challenge. And it's also driven by consultants. In the Florida Democratic Party, there are many consultants who also represent corporations.
Right.
It cracks me up. Like, we hire lobbyists to be, the Democratic brains behind different campaigns. And they're representing some of the grossest and anti-small business and monopolistic companies there are, which is the antithesis of what our values tell us to uphold. So it has been a deep and serious challenge. I take a lot of pride in flipping this legislative seat in 2018, keeping it in 2020, and winning 2 precincts that voted for Trump.
Right.
And I say that because I think that when you care about the needs of everyday people and you really focus on those pocketbook issues, those economic issues, those worker class issues, that you actually can appeal to folks of different political persuasions. But if you are just going to continue to toe this generic line and not stand up for those who need representation, then we're going to continue to fail to actually appeal to the people of Florida.
Well, also, I spoke with some LGBTQ students yesterday who are under direct attack with this Don't Say Gay bill. And even them, of course, they were talking about Republicans around the country and just the maliciousness and the heinousness. But they brought up the problem with the Democratic Party. Okay, you're there for us on these issues, but you're emboldening the Republicans by not fighting. They said, the response to Republicans moving to the batshit right is not to move to the center.
Right.
And do you think, whether in the Florida Democratic Party or elsewhere, it's just a straight up corruption problem?
Yeah.
We have Republicans who are corrupt and taking money, but you also have Democrats who are nicer sounding, rhetorically better on social justice issues, LGBTQ issues. But if you're hoarding money from Disney, if you're hoarding money from Florida Power and Light, that's obviously a blinking red light conflict of interest.
100%. Yeah. Obviously getting money out of politics is a key point to this, but when we don't have those laws to prohibit that type of contributions, then you need to have the ethics to say, well, I'm not going to take that money. I'm not going to solicit that money. I'm not going to beg for it. And it is a serious challenge that we've experienced for a very long time in Florida, where the Democratic Party's major funders are corporations, compared to an individual candidate who can work in a different way like I do to raise grassroots funds, but what is the party doing to also help new candidates have that capacity? And that's the conversation I've been having with a lot of my peers too, is trying to help my colleagues do grassroots fundraising, because it's really interesting. Like even when you look at some of our districts of low wealth, it is challenging for those Democrats to raise money because their communities are just low wealth, right? Like that is the years of neglect and generational poverty and systematic disparities. And so I'm doing my part to help those Democrats raise money in other districts, right? Introduce them to other people. Like here in District 47, we are very unique because I have folks who are some of the wealthiest of zip codes in the state. And then I have folks who are living in their cars and folks who live in hotels and motels. I have to be intentional in bringing all those different experiences together and build a multi-class, a multiracial, and multi-generational coalition for transformational change. It is not easy. You can't do it without knocking on doors and meeting folks and going to their homes and really listening and solving problems. But that is the key to a Democratic win in Florida. You know, folks have asked me all the time, are you a red state now, or are you still a purple state? And I say, we're a rainbow state. Like, you have to build a rainbow color coalition to actually win, especially statewide. And it's frustrating because folks are just doing things the same way they always do it, with a lot of assumptions that if you're young, if you're black, if you're brown, you're going to vote Democrat. If you're a woman, you're going to vote Democrat. You have to earn it. Right. You have to fight for it. And I think it's this notion of like taking communities for granted, which is what it sounds like our LGBT plus youth are expressing. We can't keep doing that. We can't make assumptions about the electorate. We have to earn and win their support.
And can you kind of talk about Disney in particular? Because I've been hearing Disney was given like $125 million in taxpayer subsidies to build a road in Universal Studios.
Universal Studios,
Meanwhile, I mean, you're talking about Wall Street is coming in and buying up homes. People who used to look to Florida to move, lower taxes, lower property insurance.
Not the case.
Can't afford an apartment or housing. It just seems like Disney, I get it, they're one of the largest employers, but it seems like they're buying off, particularly Orlando, where you represent, and they're getting the keys to the kingdom.
Yeah, we should not be a company town, and yet it operates like it's a company town. And this influence is, at municipal level to state to federal. Democrats here in Orlando and Orange County often will do the theme parks bidding. Whatever the tourism industry wants, they will do. I've been one of the few voices in opposition to that, which is not easy. It's not easy getting attacked by all these different large corporations, but at the end of the day, I wasn't elected to do what corporations wanted me to do. I was elected to uphold the values of my district and of the people that elected me to represent them. And so speaking to Disney specifically, I mean, growing up in Orlando, Disney touches your life in every shape and form. I mean, my dad worked at Disney part-time on the weekends to make ends meet for my family. My brother worked at Disney when he was in college. The only reason why I could even go to Disney was because my dad had those comp tickets. Actually, my first time ever at Disney was because my brother was a Disney dreamer and doer in 5th grade. So he got to walk in a parade, and so the family got tickets to go. Like, we could not afford to go without those types of free experiences or experiences driven by my dad's labor at the theme parks. And yet, the most magical place on earth is surrounded by poverty. And you look at their political influence. In 2020, they made upwards of $4 million in political contributions to different state candidates and state organizations. 80% leaned Republican. So they're not even playing a fair game when it comes to supporting both sides, if you will. Like, it's very much one-sided. And they built the beast that we are all now trying to slay. Like, that's the irony for them is, we put a lot of pressure alongside cast members for Disney to step up and say something about the Don't Say Gay bill. And they did it very late, during the shareholder meeting after the bill was already passed, both chambers. And then the governor calls them communists, which was like so mind-blowing to me because he has accepted so much money from Disney. So now you're taking communist money too, dude,
Right.
But at the end of the day, like Disney needs to, and every corporation who says they care about equity and inclusion, they need to walk the talk. It's so degrading to every cast member, especially though those who are LGBTQ plus, to give so much to a company that says that they care about you, and yet their political spending says the complete opposite.
Right. It's all marketing and PR.
Correct.
I also want to bring up, in addition to now he's escalating, I guess, a war on transgender athletes.
Yeah.
Obviously, the Don't Say Gay bill is awaiting his signature. I've been covering it the last few days. I wanted to bring up something Joe Rogan said, because he's got major influence.
Yeah.
11 million podcast listeners. I don't know if he read the bill. I doubt it. But he said it's first through third grade, and they're saying your teacher is not supposed to be talking about sexual orientation, gender orientation, or sexual proclivity, or what you're interested in. They said you should just teach math and science and history to little kids. Your teachers are not supposed to be the people who explain gender to a fucking 7-year-old. Who are these teachers? And do you know what their perspective is? Are they intelligent about it? Are they trying to indoctrinate the child to any particular point of view, whether it's pro-transgender or anti-transgender or anti-gay or pro-gay? They shouldn't have any say at all when you're talking to a 7-year-old kid. I have strong thoughts on that, but I wanted to ask you because, for better or worse, when he weighs into these things, it influences.
It does. So first of all, it's not even accurate. His depiction of the bill is not accurate. It is not only K to third grade, but then it has the word "or" in it. And honestly, if it was just kindergarten or third grade, I feel like there could have been, less outrage around that, because we could try to work with the bill sponsor to see if there was a way to ensure that at least there's protections for kid conversations around these topics. But the word "or" is in the bill. I don't care how many times these hyper-conservative voices want to ignore that. The word "or" is in the bill, and it says, "or whenever not deemed age appropriate." That is not even defined, meaning that the Department of Education, which already removed anti-LGBTQ plus bullying curriculum from their website in December of 2021, would be the ones to decide when is it age appropriate to acknowledge that LGBTQ plus people exist. And keep in mind that we've made such progress in academic settings around non-discrimination policies, which this one is clearly in the face of that. And we've also have to address the high suicide rates among our young people, which is 4 times worse for children who identify as LGBTQ+. And
I'll just say, I spoke with 3 LGBTQ students yesterday. I was pretty surprised. Each one of them told me they're on antidepressants, and their friends are either on antidepressants or suicidal. And this is before this bill. So,
well, we also cannot ignore the comments made by the bill sponsors and those who support this bill in explicitly saying that children identify as LGBTQ+ because it's what celebrities are doing, in saying that gay is not permanent, in saying that this is not called the Don't Say Gay bill, this is called the Don't Turn My Son Into a Girl bill. Like, these are verbatim comments coming from the right about this bill. And when I was questioning the bill sponsor on the House floor, and he kept saying this is, it's all about parents having a choice. And I said, do parents get to choose if their kid is gay? And I was stopped by the speaker. I was told the question wasn't relevant to the bill. Mm-hmm. And so I rephrased it and tried to get him to answer it. But like that's the gut punch moment for me, because they literally don't think kids are actually gay. Like, they think that it's because an inclusive school or a cool teacher inspires them to make this decision. And why would a child make a decision that arguably makes their life harder? Mm-hmm. And I just cannot get over that. And so it's shameful for folks to provide what is a myopic interpretation of the bill, because it's deceitful to what really is its impact.
Well, I'm assuming Joe Rogan did not read those the sponsors of the bill's comments, because one of the sponsors also equated same-sex parents to child abuse too.
Correct. Oh yeah, and the governor's office has called it groomers, and saying that those who oppose the bill are pro-groomer. I mean, it's unreal. It's unreal. And the reality is that Florida already has really strict and conservative guidelines on sex ed to begin with. Sex ed is even mandated in Florida schools. And if you do teach it, it has to be abstinence emphasized. It has to be posted on your school district's website, and parents can opt out. And so it's very, very conservative already, and there is no conversation of sexual activity happening in K-3. And when we brought up an amendment, when a Republican filed an amendment to change the language from sexual orientation and gender identity to sexual activity, it was denied. And the Republican sponsor said that would gut the purpose of the bill, because the purpose of the bill is to target and attack and harass and belittle and erase LGBTQ plus identity. It's not about sexual activity.
Well, let me ask you straight up. I mean, the bottom line is Democrats should be wiping the floor with Ron DeSantis.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a housing crisis, climate emergency here. You were talking about Florida Power and Light are pulling solar panel subsidies. Even Republicans are feeling it in terms of the housing prices. Property insurance is through the roof here. All of that, and he's pushing these distractions. Obviously, they're affecting real people. I mean, it seems like I just have to ask it straight up: is the problem the Democratic Party's swimming in its own corruption too much to offer an alternative? Because I think nationally and in Florida, if the Democratic Party offered a bold, progressive alternative, not mealy-mouthed, neoliberal credits here and there, but pushing rent control, things like that, that would really be able to compete with these culture war distractions.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, I serve as a ranking member on Ways and Means, which is our tax committee. So I do a lot of advocacy on ending corporate tax giveaways and asking tough questions when I see a tax break that is specific towards one corporation. And while also pushing for tax breaks for working families. And me, a minority member of the Democratic caucus, was able to secure a 1-year tax break on children's diapers. If Democrats were smart, they would be promoting that across the state, saying a Democratic member secured a 1-year tax break on children's diapers. Democrats are fighting for you. I haven't seen any communications from FDP about us doing that. Like, I just updated my website last night to make sure it was on my homepage. So I want to make sure that any of my constituents or my new constituents with redistricting see that we are effective even when we're in the minority. And yet that type of message is not coming from the party. And we talk about corporate tax giveaways. That was another legislative win for us. This session, the Florida Senate was trying to pass what would have been another $3 billion corporate tax break. Unnecessary, gluttonous, terrible. Only 1% of Florida businesses even pay a corporate income tax. That is the richest and wealthiest, most profitable companies, many who are international, not our Florida-based businesses. And we stopped that from happening. We asked tough questions. We talked about it on social media. We amplified the everyday person's knowledge of these tax breaks and what that would mean. Because when you give a tax break to corporations, we end up paying for the rest. Mm-hmm. And we won. We won that fight. And again, I'm here talking about it and praising about it. Crickets from the Democratic Party. They should be putting this on a fucking banner, talking about how Florida Democrats saved you money and stopped corporate tax giveaways. But because it impacts their donors, they're not going to say it. And it's self-censorship.
I'm sure those paid consultants at the fundraisers
100%.
Don't want that message.
That's what it is. That's what it is. It's 100% what it is. And so it's like self-defeating, right? Like we're just continuously shooting ourselves in the foot. And it's on an array of issues, affordable housing definitely being another one, alongside the property insurance crisis, alongside pollution and water quality. Like, we should be actively talking about the influence the sugar industry has in Florida. Whenever I talk about it, I get praise from Republicans and Democrats. Same thing with the net metering and anti-rooftop solar fight. I got so much praise from Republicans. Remember, rooftop solar in Florida, so much of the industry, which is one of the fastest growing jobs in the state alongside energy efficiency sector, so much of that workforce, they were construction workers back in 2008. Right. Many are Republicans who went from construction during the housing crisis and the foreclosure crisis. They went into the clean energy economy with the help of federal government incentives. And so this is like a very diverse political business community, and yet you have Republicans completely ignoring them and Democrats voting with them. They're looking for champions. Mm-hmm. And we can be those champions if we weren't so privy to the influence of corporations like Florida Power and Light.
What's your message? Because I could tell you in just online since Bernie's last election, a lot of people who were voting for Bernie twice have fallen out of favor. I mean, they even tell me when I'm interviewing Democrats, "Oh, yeah, I like what you're saying, but I'm not voting for a Democrat."
Yeah.
Period. I've said, to me, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like Nina Turner, for example, I think she had a record of fighting, but people, she's running as a Democrat. I'm done. What is your message? Because obviously you're not going to beat the Republicans in the culture war if people who voted Democrat in the past are just like, I'm done with this same broken record. Even if an individual like Representative Eskamani is fighting, it's just too corrupt. What's your message to those people? Because to me, the reason DeSantis, other Republicans around the country are winning is because they're viewed as fighting, even though they're for terrible things, and the Democrats are deflating the working class.
Mm-hmm. It's something that I think about every single day when it comes to having to rebuild trust with the electorate and having to demonstrate, again, that when you vote for Democrats, you will see positive change in your life. We're not delivering that right now. I mean, look at student debt. This was a campaign promise from President Biden. He even mentioned it during his State of the Union address. And that is such an important issue that would have widespread transformational change for Americans of every political persuasion. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's more a message I have for members of my own party who are, identify as Democratic activists, that we need to rebuild trust, and we can't just organize around elections. We have to organize around solving problems. And I've been coaching a lot of local parties on this and saying, listen, even if you don't have Democratic lawmakers in your area, what's stopping you from hosting an eviction diversion workshop? Bring in legal aid, bringing in immigration attorneys to host a workshop on immigration issues, and then use your same GOTV recruitment skills to recruit for that event. But instead of asking them to go out and vote, you're asking them to come seek services and see that we're here for you. That even when you can't vote, we're here for you, right? So I really do think it's important that for any Democratic activist out there who cares about this work to find ways to integrate public service into all your activism and impact people's lives in a positive way. To those who feel disenchanted, know that there are many of us who are fighting to truly build a party that represents the needs of everyday people, that's building that multi-class, multiracial, multi-generational coalition, because that is our path to victory. It's what we've done here in District 47, and I know it's possible at a much larger scale.
And you're running again, so where
where
can people find out?
So because we're districting, our new district is now 42. And you can learn more at honorforflorida.com, and we're on every social media outlet, including TikTok, at honor4florida with 2 N's. Definitely follow us and keep in touch. And
I appreciate it, because it's not easy to get politicians to talk honestly about corruption in their, in their own party. So I appreciate you kind of saying it like it is. We're going to be doing interviews later in the day in Tampa with people from the St. Pete and Tampa Tenants Union. You think the affordable housing is bad here? Tampa, St. Pete, good luck getting a roof over your head right now. And there's a lot of corruption going on there too. So we'll be live, if we can make it in time, around 2:30, 3 o'clock, and then 5 o'clock also. Please support this reporting on the ground. Become a member, statuscoup.com/join. You could sign up for as low as $5 to $10 a month. That's how we fund this. Flights, hotels, rent a car, food, very expensive, gas, very expensive to do actual reporting. Please sign up, statuscoup.com/join. We'll be live in a few